I followed the rules and principles that the financial radio gurus talk about, right? And that led me to see my investments dropped substantially in 2008. And like I said, that was kind of a wake-up call for me. So the summer of 2012, using a system of nutrition as well as detoxification and basically just kind of being aware of what you're eating, but still eating, what you wanted to in many ways, really helped improve my health.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into CrushTheStreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and I always like speaking with successful people. And the truth is, behind every successful person, many times is, maybe a rough past. And you know what? I'm really looking forward to speaking to our next guest here. His name is Scotty Studer, and he's a motivational speaker. He calls himself a tech geek, but he's had some experiences in life that he now shares with people, and he's even written a book, Small Changes, Big Results. His website is scottystuder.com. We'll have the link in the description area, but without any further ado, Scotty, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Kenneth, it's great to be with you.
Well, as a first-time guest and getting to know you, Scotty, hey, let's get your story. What led you to where you are today and what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to share that with you. So I've been in the IT industry, went to school for it back in college. I've been in the industry about 18 years now or so. I was one of the kind of guys in college. I went to college with not really a great plan. Didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. Didn't have that dream in mind, growing up as a kid. And so I took the first couple of years to kind of figure that out, and found my way into IT. And I was actually pretty thankful and pretty grateful to it. It's turned out to be a great, just kind of regular career for me, if you will. I enjoy learning. I enjoy the technology side of it. I've transitioned over the years from, starting out being the guy who's fixing all the computer problems, kind of like what, some folks do with their in-laws or their mom or their dad or something like that, right? So I was doing that for the first part of my life and kind of moved my way up over the past 18 years, and now work for a pretty fantastic company, kind of one of those Palo Alto, Silicon Valley kind of startups. They've been around 15 years. The company's called VMware, and I do software sales for them on the technical side, and I really enjoy what I do. It helps me engage with customers every day to kind of do some problem solving for them. So, they'll typically come to us with some kind of a business need they're trying to achieve, and they're looking to our software to help them hopefully remedy some of those problems. So I get to interact and talk with customers on a more technical level every day. And so that's kind of like my day-to-day route. And I feel very blessed. I enjoy what I do. I have the ability to work from home, and I have to travel some for work, but it's not too terribly much. So I get to spend time here at the house with my wife and two kids. I've got two teenagers in the house now too. So that's always fun. Every day can be a little bit different sometimes with teenagers, but they're good kids. And life is really, really good. So that's kind of my regular, normal working life, a little bit of the career history there.
Sure. Now, and then you obviously wrote a book, and you have some practices and techniques that you now share with people. I mean, what really led you into that? Your passions for that?
Yeah, and it's a unique shift for me, really, because I kind of say it in the description, on the website and things along those lines. You don't typically hear of a guy kind of been in IT for 20 years to really kind of put together a book kind of based on some personal development principles, which is really what Small Changes, Big Results is all about. And so I'd probably say for the first maybe 10 years of my working career, I was just kind of going along like most people do. I didn't have a lot of dreams and aspirations in many ways. Quite frankly, I was pretty I wouldn't say stuck, but I would just say content, but kind of content in a lazy way. I just didn't really have anything to really strive for, any big goals, I guess, and just never really thought about that. And so about 6 or 8 years ago, some things happened. I'm sure you're very aware, right? The crash of 2008 from a financial perspective was kind of a big wake-up call for me personally. I've always enjoyed finance. whether it's personal finance or investing and things along those lines. And for the first 10 years of my life, of my working career. When I say my life, I mean my working career. I followed the rules and principles that the radio gurus, the financial radio gurus, talk about, right? And that led me to see my investments drop substantially in 2008. And like I said, that was kind of a wake up call for me. So that was kind of the turning point to at least do some discovery on the financial side and say there's got to be something else out there. There's got to be something different out there, something really better that I had more control over, quite frankly, that I wasn't so reliant on my employer, sticking money in a 401k, praying the market doesn't dump again. Mm-hmm. But hey, I was getting the match, and that was great, right? So I knew there had to be something different. And so that was probably a big turning point for me. I met some other folks, did some research on my own, took a lot more time in figuring where I wanted to go next from a personal finance and investment perspective. Mm. And then about 5 years after that, 3 to 4 years really, I was introduced to some folks, some leaders, if you will, who when I heard their story, it was all about how personal development really took them from where they were into where they are now. And I was kind of like, okay, that's a pretty cool story. But I'm not a reader, right? That was always my big kind of thing.
Me neither.
I never have been. My joke is I married an English teacher. And so that's kind of, she makes up for the fact that I wasn't ever much of a reader.
Funny.
she's always got her nose in a book.
I'm always listening to podcasts. To be honest, that's what I obviously do. But I mean, I'm always listening to podcasts. That's how I like to get and listen to information, watch videos, watch YouTube. But yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly, right. So so when they said that, I was like, yeah, but I'm not going to sit down and read like for fun and kind of do it, on this personal development track, because I've tried the fiction route before, when we're on vacation or something like that. But to your point, right, I found that a lot of these guys started listening to audiobooks, when they're in their car or when they're on a jog or when they're doing something, right, where you have to be engaged in something, but you can still listen, whether it's cleaning the house, right, doing chores, mm-hmm. mowing the lawn, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I like to go golfing on my own and put on some headphones and listen and learn.
Yeah, that's great. And so you're really, you're working on your golf game as well as kind of, learning a lot during those times. So yeah, that's another wonderful example. So I started doing a little bit more of that, got some recommendations from this group of leaders. And I tell you, it was kind of a, it's like garbage in, garbage out. We talk about that from an IT perspective, right? But also that's a universal principle. I mean, it can be applied in so many aspects in our life, right? And for me personally, I wasn't really taking anything in that was I don't know, I guess positive, going to help reinforce or grow, some ideas in me that I never thought about before. I was probably your typical average person where, in my free time, I was probably watching something on TV most of the time. And I still do that for lazy recreation like everybody else does, right?
Sure.
But I've also really transitioned into that. And so that was kind of another big step for me, right, is that taking good stuff in and really trying to think differently, to apply principles a little bit differently, whether it is in my relationships with my family, whether it's in my faith, whether it's in just setting goals and getting more stuff done. I'm a terrible procrastinator. I haven't mastered that goal yet, quite frankly. I'm probably procrastinating on fixing my procrastinating problem, right? But nonetheless, there's certain aspects that I feel like I have gotten better at. And so it started with that. And then some health things kind of changed for me as well. The same group of leaders, they were sharing with me some things they were doing from a nutritional perspective. And again, I was kind of the regular guy, right? I'd go in, I'd sit in my chair all day, I'd work on my computer all day, I'd come home, and I wasn't very active. And I knew that wasn't the right thing to do, but I also ate whatever I wanted to. And so health was something I needed to work on, quite frankly. And so in the summer of 2012, through a friend of mine who had some great results, really not with anything you would consider a diet, but more about putting good stuff in from a nutrition perspective, right? Using a system of nutrition as well as detoxification, and basically just kind of being aware of what you're eating, but still eating, what you wanted to in many ways, really helped improve my health. So
yeah, Scotty, let me pause you right there, because I definitely wanted to get into some of the specifics on some different areas of success. And we know that when it comes to successful people, they're successful in multiple areas. It's usually not that they're just great in relationships and they're not good elsewhere. And this is one of the areas, health. And I wanted to talk to you about some of the health strategies and maybe give the audience a couple tips that, just small steps, a small change like you're talking about that we can apply. And, for instance, for me, I've been actually, and this is just doing some reading, eating a lot of blueberries, wild berries, pomegranates, blackberries, and I've just been finding some of the most amazing health benefits. I mean, digestion, feeling better, more energy. And I just, do you have a couple things there that you would care to share with everyone that, we can all take away with regarding health?
Oh, I'd love to. It's something I get excited about. And what you just said really hits the nail on the head, right? You're getting back to nature in that regard, right? You're getting back to the basics in the suggestions that you gave. And it's amazing if we give our body the basics before processed food was introduced, 100 years ago, right? It's amazing what the diet consisted of average Americans back in those days as it is today. And so what my goal has been is to try to get back to those nutritional basics. So a couple of things I can suggest real quickly that have worked well for me is I start my morning with two things. I start my morning with a glass of lemon water. So anybody can take a glass of water and squeeze a lemon, or if they're a fan of essential oils, use a drop of lemon essential oil in a glass of water, give it a good shake, and drink that down. And honestly, that idea proved to be kind of the tipping point for me in this book, actually. So it was an idea recommended on a podcast I was listening to, kind of in the very same way that you asked me this question. What's one thing that anybody can do if they were starting from nothing to try to improve their health? That was basically the question that the interviewer asked the gentleman he was interviewing, and that's the suggestion that he gave.
Sure.
And I thought, well, I can do that. I could make some. I've got some ideas in that regard, and so I kind of picked up that routine and saw some of the benefits of it. I mean, lemon water helps in digestion. It helps in so many different things, and I call out some of those. In fact, one of the chapters in my book is this very idea. That idea of taking some time in the morning to just have a glass of lemon water and just see how your body reacts to it. Give it a week to 10 days. That's always my suggestion, right? Don't try it one day and say that didn't work for me. That's not going to work for anybody. But I also don't say you got to stick to something for a month, right, to see if it's really going to work for you. My general recommendation is 7 to 10 days. So I start my day with lemon water, and I believe that's a refreshing, easy way that anybody can do to take a step in the right direction, of kind of getting back to those basics. To start their day.
Really cool.
The next thing I do, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. The other idea is I have a drink that I start my day with. It's based on a botanical called Moringa oleifera, and it's not a plant that most people have heard of in the U.S., right? It has to be grown in India. It has to be harvested in a certain way and those kinds of things. At any rate, there's a company that I found who basically takes this drink and this plant and processes it in such a way that keeps all of the great nutrition and provides it in a little a bag thing that I pour in and shake it up with water, right? And it's pretty cool because this botanical mix itself provides a ton of nutrition, right? A ton of calcium, a ton of potassium, a ton of all the vitamin A, the vitamin C, the vitamin D, right? All the stuff that you need to really have good nutrition. That's what this provides me at the beginning of my day. And so kickstarting my morning with those two things sets me up for success, right? Back to your point as well, throughout the day from many aspects, not just nutritionally speaking, but it provides me with more alertness, because instead of eating the couple of donuts like I normally would have done, now I'm starting my day with these two things.
Well, I love it. I love little things, and I found that to be true in my life. Just small little changes, and really getting into that mindset gives you that momentum you need to have more success. Because it's always difficult when you're starting off as like 300 pounds, feeling like a failure, feeling like everything's going against you. But once you have small successes in your life towards your goal, you feel differently. You have momentum. You get excited about it, and it becomes more and more doable as you go further down the line. So really, just those small little things, definitely. And I'd like to learn more about that second suggestion. I'm not sure how to say it. Moringa oleifera. I'll definitely want to do some more research on that. Scotty, let's talk a little bit more about morning strategies. So many people say that the mornings are some of the most important things to having a successful day. You have to win your morning. If you don't win your morning, you lose the rest of the day. And I want to see, it sounds like you believe in the morning, and I want to see if you have any suggestions for us to having successful mornings.
Yeah. So chapter 1 of the book is develop a morning routine. So I think it's super important. It's the first chapter in the book, right? So this was something that I was dead set against most of my adult life, right? Because I was quote unquote not a morning person, right? That's the excuse that I gave.
We all say that, right?
Everybody gives it. Yeah. Nobody, well, I say nobody. I do know a handful of people who their entire life wake up, chipper, ready to go, happy as a lark first thing in the morning. But I feel like naturally that's a vast minority of people.
Right.
So I think the vast majority of people are not quote unquote morning people. But the point there is what can you do with intentionality in your morning? And so what I have found, and honestly, it kind of gets back to this whole personal development thing, right? A friend suggested a book that I go read on how to set up a successful morning for me. And again, his thing was, maybe you don't do all of the things that the author talks about, but maybe you do a handful of them, right?
Of course.
And so I did that, and I started picking up a few things. So my morning today consists of getting up. My alarm goes off about 10 to 5 during a regular day. Now, my kids are in school. My wife is a teacher at that same school, and so they have to get going and get up and going to be there a little bit early. So that's why we start our day at the time that we do, right? And so I get up with them. But basically, my morning begins with a couple of things that I just mentioned. I literally go to the fridge. I grab my Moringa nutritional drink. I sit down at the table, and the first thing that I do is drink on that nutritional mix as I'm starting my day. I have a time that I set aside for some Bible reading and some prayer time. Faith's super important to me.
Okay.
So I try to be consistent with that every single morning. And then what I'll also do when I get done with that is set some time up for my personal development reading, right? Because I'm not a reader, like we mentioned earlier, I kind of have to, at times, honestly, kind of force myself to do it. And so I will usually take 10 to 15 minutes of time to read a few chapters in a book, whether that's a leadership training book, whether that's a John Maxwell book, right? There's so many amazing authors out there who speak a lot of wisdom through what they have written. So that's the primary things that I do. And that usually takes me probably about 20, 25 minutes for me personally in the morning. Now, is there more that I could be doing? Absolutely. There's more along the lines of perhaps exercise, right? Some folks incorporate this idea of writing in the morning, kind of what we call affirmations, right? Writing some things that you're thankful for and those kinds of things. So there's lots of other things that you can tack onto that, or just kind of niche and do what you do and what gets you going. And that's kind of where I'm centered on right now.
Yeah, no, it's super powerful and getting your mind in the right place. Something that's really important is obviously being awake, having a good sleeping patterns, and going back to the point of being a morning person or not being a morning person. I've always found that I have to get up early and start that way, regardless of whether or not I go to bed at midnight or 10 or 1 in the morning. You have to start by getting up early, so you're tired at night. So when you hit your head hits the pillow, you actually fall asleep at a reasonable time. And if you set a consistent time to get up on a regular basis, you will be tired at night and you will get up early. And just having that routine and that consistency of doing that is super important for not being out of the routine. So many people go to bed really late or get up, really late or go to bed. I mean, people that work different hours, swing shifts and different things like that. I mean, that's tough. It's really hard to get into a really good routine when you're constantly tired at different times of the day and you don't have a consistent routine. And those, I mean, I don't know if maybe you have some suggestions for them, but those are difficult things to deal with. But it's all about, again, having that right mindset and putting yourself in that right mindset. And I mean, anything else on the sleeping side of things? Yeah. One person told me, because I was having problems sleeping, to stop drinking caffeine past 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That way the caffeine has time to get out of your body. And you want, again, when you go to bed at night, you want to have as many of the stimulants out of your body so you are tired, and exercise early so that your body is in fact tired when you go to bed at night. And again, all of these things are good for regular sleeping patterns. But any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, no, this is great because I focus like 4 different chapters on this idea of getting good rest, right? Everything you said, I completely agree with, and it doesn't really matter if I agree with it, right? Research proves it to be true, right? Getting up consistently at the same time every morning and trying best you can to have a consistent bedtime, to your point, where you are truly tired and ready to go to sleep, because you've had a full day, and because you got up early. All of those things are spot on. And so what I focus on is how to set the right conditions for good sleep, because I have had 2 different sleep studies throughout as an adult. And so I've struggled in this area, quite frankly. And so I dedicate 4 different chapters, and I talk about setting the mood for your environment, right? So I talk about things like we have a white noise machine. I don't know if you know about these or are a fan of them or not. But
we have two children, and that's how they sleep.
Yeah, I'm a very light sleeper, right? So all the creaks and cricks and cars and whatever it was at night, right, that I would hear, it would keep me up. So several years ago now, we popped on Amazon and bought these little white noise machines. Now, like you said, every room has one, including our kids' room. But what it does is it presents that nice, smooth ambient noise that muddles out all of those noises that were keeping me from initially falling asleep. That's a real easy win that anybody can do to set the mood to help you achieve better sleep. Is having a white noise machine.
That's. I'll just stop you right there, just to make a point right there. When I'm driving in the car and my 6-month-old falls asleep and we're all talking. Yeah. He sleeps through all the talking, the radio noises, my 2-year-old screaming. He sleeps just fine. Yeah. And it's interesting because if he's alone in a room and we walk into that room and start talking, he hears one little noise and he jolts up. But it goes to your point, like if you have some sort of ambient noise that's kind of in the background, there's less of a chance that you'll be jolted awake when a slight other noise comes into the room and wakes you up. So just one practical example that I've seen within my own circle of inner circle here in my family. Yeah. So go ahead, continue with your points.
Well, and everybody's different too, right? So my wife and I are like the yin and yang when it comes to sleep patterns. I mean, I'm the light sleeper who would wake up with anything, and she's the one who literally, when her head hits the pillow, or shortly thereafter, she's already asleep. And I've been jealous of her for almost 20 years now in that regard too. So I think part of it is just kind of the nature. You have to know you have to know kind of your sleeping patterns, what's working and what's not working. Now, I think I feel pretty confident she doesn't like to be without the white noise machine either, even though she's a very hard sleeper and always has been. Of course, her body, her routine, her sleep pattern has become now accustomed to that. So I even have an app on my phone. So when I travel for work I leave the sleep machine, in the bedroom because she wants it, right? And I found an app on my phone that I will start, and all it is just like a fan white noise that I'll put by my nightstand in the hotel because I have to have it because I'd be miserable without it. Yeah.
Sure. No, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. So anything else? Any other points on sleep that you wanted to share with our audience?
The only quick suggestion I'd give is I personally believe that the room needs to be as dark as possible. Any kind of light has always affected me. I need that darkness, and so we bought a house last year. We moved into our new house, and we put blinds on our windows. But it wasn't like there was still light coming in the top of them. And we went and bought some of those darkening drapes. Blackout drapes is what they're called. And oh my goodness, like I recommend that to everybody now if you're kind of in a similar situation, to try to get that room as dark as possible. They're such a blessing too. And it's like these little things. That's what I mean. And that's really what I tried to focus on here in every chapter in the book. These are not grandiose, hard things to do, but you would be surprised as to how much effect for the good that they can have. So something little like getting some blackout drapes, to keep that room as dark as possible.
Yeah, no, excellent ideas, and I was going to just run this by you. I've done some study on sleep myself just to help me in my own personal life, and somebody was talking about, to that effect, when you have light on around you, it's the melatonin that is not kicking in. So when you have the darkness come in around you, the melatonin starts kicking in, and you start getting tired. And one of the things that they were talking about is people on their phones or watching TV, and this disrupting the melatonin coming into your body and causing you to not fall asleep, and looking at your phone and engaging in something that's stimulating your brain. So any thoughts on that?
So it's great. So we don't have any devices in our bedroom like that. Like our phones, we plug them in outside in the hallway in a little charging station, right? And I do, although I don't always, I'm not consistent with it, but I do try to shut my computer down before 9 o'clock at night. We're usually in bed between 10 and 10:30, right? That's kind of our normal bedtime.
Pretty normal, yeah.
So I will usually try to shut screens, phones, laptop, down by 9. Now, will we kind of chill and watch TV and literally fall asleep watching whatever happens to be on the television that last hour and a half of the day? Yeah, a lot of times we will. But for me personally, that's a different kind of or eye strain, for lack of a better term, right? It doesn't stimulate my mind with eye strain like something personal like a phone or a computer does. So that's kind of our routine and kind of my general rule.
That's I've heard that too. And a phone, getting on Facebook or clicking through things is engaging your motor skills. Yep. And watching something on TV is almost similar to reading a book. It's calming your mind, and that actually does. For a lot of people, it shuts them down, and I tend to be the same way when it comes to watching TV. Now, if I'm on my phone, I can stay up all night because I'm engaging on motor skills, and that I know is a problem. But definitely watching TV at night or reading a book, I can only go for so long, and then I'm out because I'm tired. I get laughed at for how early I fall asleep sometimes.
Oh,
so
we're right. I'm right there with you.
So all good stuff, man. This is such great information. The audience is gonna really appreciate all the stuff that you're sharing with us today. So here, let's talk about some philosophical strategies in terms of finances and wealth and putting yourself in a position to be financially successful. Maybe not just from a actionable point of view in terms of what to do with your money, but how to think and how to get ahead and to be in a position where maybe you don't have money to where you do have money.
Yep. I think it begins with a mindset about money, quite frankly. So you either have an abundance mentality towards money or you have a scarcity mentality towards money. And for too long, I had a scarcity mentality towards money. And quite frankly, it was due to what I was taking in. It was due to the financial advice I was choosing to listen to, where it's all about budgeting, eating beans and rice, saving, and really not enjoying what I believe the blessing that God has given each of us and through the money that we earn, right? And so it was kind of a paradigm shift for me, quite frankly, and it still is. I find myself battling the old scarcity self all the time because it was my norm for so long, right? But I truly am trying to adopt an abundance mentality. And let me preface this by saying the last thing you're going to hear out of me is that abundance means that you spend a bunch of money on credit, that you try to keep up with the Joneses, and that you live this lavish lifestyle that you have no business living, right? That couldn't be farther from the truth. I see the value in, using debt in a smart way, not a bad way, right? I see the value in having some savings, right? But I also don't see the value in giving everything up to the market where you have no control over it, right? So I'm trying to fashion my personal finance and way of investing differently than I did for the first 15 years of my life. One of the things that I share in the book that really helped me when we first got started in marriage, and still does, is for those people who feel like they don't have a clue where to start. Like, let's say they have no idea like where their money's going or how much money they bring in or how much they're saving. Man, the best thing for me that I ever did was to write down my spending. And so I focus a chapter talking about that. And I call it a spending plan as opposed to a budget, because again, I'm trying to change my perspective. Spending plan is an abundance mentality perspective. A budget is a scarcity mentality perspective, right? The end goal can be drastically different just depending on the mind frame that you use. And so my suggestion is, if you don't have a clue, take 7 to 10 days and take 5 minutes at the end of every day and just write down what you spent, or just keep some receipts and go back and write down what you spent. Tracking some of that money and where it's going can really be a huge eye opener. And maybe you had no idea how much money you're spending on Starbucks, right, every morning, or eating out, or golf, right, or whatever it is. I don't know. And that's not to say that, again, the abundance side doesn't say you got to quit doing that. That's what the scarcity side would say, right? The abundance side says, how can I keep doing that, but also be responsible with my money, providing for my family, and doing some smart things with my money. So paradigm shift for me, that was a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going along the receipt side and keeping track of what you spend. I remember I've always been against debt, even as a teenager, and when I was able to apply for a credit card at 16 years old, I always had that in me. I never went into debt in certain things like that. I mean, I've bought a car and, houses and things like that where we have gone into debt, and stuff for business that, I thought were good debt in the way you put it. But I remember I said, I'm going to start using a credit card just to get the points back. I know I always pay off my bills. And then when I started to actually have to write one lump sum check to the credit card company for everything I spent throughout the month, I started realizing how much I was actually spending, rather than $10 here, $20 here, $300 here at a time. You're like, oh, okay, that's not that big of a deal. But you start adding up everything and writing one check to the credit card company. I was like, wow. Yeah. I am spending way more than I thought I was actually spending in a matter of 4 weeks. I didn't even realize it. And it kind of lends itself to what you were saying. And actually, using a credit card for me helped me start to spend less, believe it or not. And I wouldn't suggest that for everybody, because a lot of times we get suckered into that minimum payment of like $15 or something ridiculous. And then you end up sacrificing future prosperity for immediate satisfaction. And paying for that for years to come. But for me, that was one big eye-opener. Scott, let's talk about relationships, and I just try to get some initial thoughts on relationships, some of the best tips you have for people when it comes to having a successful marriage and making it work with people around you.
Yeah. Again, it's a great topic of conversation. It's something that all of us, I think, want to improve in some form or fashion in our lives, whether it's with our wife, whether it's with our kids, whether it's with our coworkers, whether it's with our parents, right? We all are designed for relationships. I truly believe that. But sometimes we're not natural at relationships. Some of us just aren't, right? Some of us are. And so, again, personal development has really been an eye-opener for me, reading some books about this. And one of the most influential for me was How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie wrote that book back in late 20s, early 30s. But to me, it's almost like the Bible of personal development, right? It kind of set the standard for what so many other authors have been able to take and run with. And so two things, one thing from that book that is developed into two principles to me is this idea of showing genuine interest. Everyone loves to talk about themselves. I mean, let's be honest here, right?
Sure.
There's nothing more engaging than when someone is showing you genuine interest by asking questions about you and what's going on with your life, and genuinely wants to know, is not just making small talk, right? So that's what I really stress in this chapter, and that's what Dale Carnegie stressed in this principle, right? And that idea is if you want to be a better friend, if you want to have a better relationship with someone, it begins with showing genuine interest. And all that means is you ask questions, right? You ask questions, and you sincerely engage, and then you remember the answers for the next time. So you remember to ask about, so and so that they mentioned was your child was having an event at school or going through a tough time, right? I mean, that's what this is all about. So showing genuine interest for me personally has been huge, and it's something that I haven't mastered by any stretch of the. And quite frankly, just being honest, it's not natural for me, quite frankly, Kenneth. I have to really kind of stretch myself to do that. But every time I do, I reap the rewards in that relationship without question. So that's probably the first big one that I would recommend for folks. And then a practical one that I've done, and I talk about this in one of the chapters too, is just sharing something positive with a friend or a coworker. We're all inundated with negativity, right? It's like the world thrives. I mean, it's what the news is, right? But the world just thrives on negativity. And so if you could pick one person in the interactions that you have in the day, if you could pick one person, and before the end of the day, as you're having conversation with them, just share something positive that they said, that they did, that you noticed, that really struck you as pretty awesome with them. Again, you're doing it to provide them some encouragement, and it's just a simple thing, but it does take some effort on our part to kind of proactively think that way and be on the lookout for those things. But it can be a real joy to their life. Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And, one of the things that I try to do that's just really, when you think about it, it's so simple. But again, to make an impression on people is when you meet them, actually remember their name. Yes. And when you see it, because I'm always shocked when I meet somebody and 2 months later they come up and they're like, "Hi, Kenneth, how are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, wow, you remember." And that I walk away thinking, wow, that person remembered my name. And it made an impression on me. And I'm like, wow, they actually cared. At least that's what I walk away thinking. It's like, wow, they actually, that relationship, that interaction that we had actually meant something to them. And it's all about, really building people up and making people feel good about themselves and reaping the reward of that. And it coming around full circle, and, what that does to you and your business networking and what that does for you. And just so many different aspects of your life. I mean, wow, it's such powerful principles. And, I think this is something that people definitely need to be educated on. Scotty, let's just wrap this up on happiness. Sure. Is happiness, I know you're faith-based. I am as well, and I believe that's a huge part to our ultimate happiness. Is it a combination of everything, moderation of everything, even moderation type of thing? What is ultimately what's going to make people happy?
Yeah. So I'll just be perfectly honest, right? I've been a person of faith for literally, kind of grew up with it, right? So I could literally say my entire life in many ways, but there's so many aspects as to what that truly means to personify it in your day-to-day walk, in your day-to-day talk, in your day-to-day. You can say you're a person of faith, but quite frankly, be a cranky, miserable old man, right? I mean, we've probably all met those kinds of people, and that was me, quite frankly. I kind of saw myself becoming that, and my opinion is, for most people, it's not something to kind of be that positive person, be that person that sees the glass is half full, because of all, kind of back to that other point, of all the negative influences we have every day. If you are going to be that light, right? If you are going to be that person who is shining in a way that's unique, that's different, that other people want to be around, that other people get energy from, I think it's all about, if you're going to maintain that, right? You got to be you can't do it by yourself. And what I mean by that is you got to be reading and developing into a better person and applying some of those principles. But to me, it's critical to have an element of faith to that. I truly, and I don't say this in a disparaging way, I personally don't know how folks who don't have faith get through the tough times, right? And get through it in such a way that provides them motivation, that provides them a means of moving on to the next day without that perspective. And so it's absolutely critical and key for me. But it's not just that; it's also reading and developing myself, hearing what other folks have been through, being inspired by them, whether it's through books, whether it's through podcasts, whatever it is, but intentionally trying to bring positive vibes, positive information into your life so that you can then kind of display some of that as well.
Well, I know that felt like the conclusion there, but I have another question for you, Scotty.
Okay, great.
And it kind of came to me because so many of us, we're entrepreneurs. We have the spirit of growth, and we want to keep growing and getting better. And on the note of happiness, it can sometimes feel like we're never satisfied. Because we're always trying to get better, we're always trying to grow, and even those of us who, maybe feel like we've made it to a certain spot, but then once we get there, we're still reaching for more and more and more. What advice do you have for those of us who have this entrepreneurial spirit? Because there's people out there, to be fair, who are very content where they are, and almost I look at that and I'm saying there's got to be a good. There's got to be some sense of a good feeling to not always be like trying to reach for more, but you're just fully content and fully happy. And I know they're fully happy, but what about for those of us who are wanting to grow? And what advice do you have?
Yeah, it's a battle I fight, right? I think it's a battle kind of many people fight. I as I've gotten older in years, I guess I've taken a little bit different perspective on it, and that is, I feel like I'm content in whatever state I'm in, and that's a very biblical principle, right? Because I'm very thankful for whatever state that I'm in. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the end goal, and so for me personally, I have to kind of take it in some ways one day at a time, right? I don't try to live my life personally for always striving to reach that next financial goal, as an example. I guess what I'm trying to say is I have to keep it in perspective. I've got family goals, kids, experiences I want to have with my family, because those are the things that are going to really last for a very long time. I've got goals for me personally from a career and from a financial perspective that I would like to achieve. But I've also got to temper that with God has truly blessed me and put me in an amazing, wonderful place. And I think if most of us living in America, if we've tried to kind of be proactive about the steps that we're taking, probably a lot of us can really say that as well. I would venture to guess. I know not everyone's circumstances are that way, and I understand that. But I've really tried to adopt an attitude of I'm going to be content whatever the state I'm in, but I'm also going to be looking beyond and saying, okay, what else can I do where I'm not totally stressed out or enthralled or taking time away from the most valuable things in life, right? Time spent with family, time spent with friends, building relationships to achieve some of those other things. And I think as you mentioned, that can be a really tough balance for people, and I've almost had to kind of force myself to go there, set limits, set time limits on certain activities, so that it doesn't become your world and therefore taking away from those more important things. So I hope that was kind of the answer.
I feel like I've connected with you so much in this discussion here, and if I could just put my 2 cents in for essentially what you are saying, but and how I go about it is, when I wake up in the morning, sure, I'm trying to make forward steps in my life. And there is a satisfaction that humans get from achieving goals, that when you are successful, there's a happiness that comes with that. And I think it's healthy for people to continue to grow. But at the end of the day, you have to step back. And this is where I think a lot of people fail, and I've failed in the past, is that you're still looking for growth at the end of the day and not stepping back and being content when your head hits the pillow, and reflecting and being thankful and saying, you know what? I'm in a great spot. I appreciate where I'm at right now. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for all the things that I've done, and fully appreciate your accomplishments, or letting go of failures, and understanding that there's more tomorrow, but fully taking in that moment and understanding that, hey, tomorrow may never come. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So if you're always in that state of I need to get better, and always reaching for something, and then tomorrow never comes, you've just ended your life in a moment of always wanting and never fully enjoying the moment. So so any last words of closing thoughts here, Scott? I really appreciate you coming on and discussing this with me. Let people know, of course, where they can get your book, and just any closing thoughts that you wanted to share with everybody.
Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. I've truly enjoyed the opportunity to speak to some folks on podcasts, because we do wind up connecting in certain areas. Because what I'm trying to be about, and the example I'm trying to be, I think is universal for anyone who's trying to just take some steps towards bettering themselves, right? And so I'm hopeful that this resonates with your audience. Maybe not every piece of it. We're probably not going to agree 100%, but that's okay, right? Because that's just human nature. But hopefully some of the things that we've talked about today are going to maybe trigger some things, maybe get you thinking a little bit differently. It was literally on a podcast like this that got me thinking differently, that was the first step to writing this book. So I know for a fact that things like this can matter. I'd love to connect with some of your audience. I can be reached at scottystuder.com. That's my primary website. From there, the book can be ordered in audio, paperback, or Kindle format. I've got all three out there. Please hit me up on Twitter at Scotty Studer. My Facebook is at Scotty Studer. I try to keep things really simple, so anybody can get a hold of me at any time. I love interacting with folks.
Good deal, Scotty. Well, hey, I definitely appreciate you coming on, and we'll be sure to do a follow-up conversation here in the near future. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you.